Ever get that, like, creepy feeling when you're online? You know, like when you're sending a password or credit card number and you just feel like someone's looking over your shoulder?
Yeah, totally.
Well, turns out, in the digital world, that might not just be paranoia. We're talking about man-in-the-middle attacks or MITM.
Right.
Basically, someone could be sitting between you and, like, your bank's website or whatever,
Yeah.
secretly reading everything.
Yeah, it's a bit unsettling when you think about it, but the more you know about it, the better you can protect yourself, right? That's kind of the whole point of what we're doing here today, like taking a deep dive into the world of MITM attacks.
Exactly. So today we'll be uncovering, well, some of the sneaky techniques that hackers use, things like ARP spoofing, SSL stripping, all that fun stuff.
Yeah. And most importantly, we'll be covering how to protect yourself.
Exactly. Because these techniques, I mean, they are powerful.
Yeah. And dangerous in the wrong hands, for sure.
Totally. But understanding them is, like, the first step to better protection.
Right. Exactly. It's like, imagine learning how a lock works, both how to pick it and how to make it more secure. It's the same idea with cybersecurity.
Right. So, okay, let's start with the basics. What exactly is a MITM attack?
Okay, so imagine this. You're at a coffee shop using their Wi-Fi, trying to log into your bank account.
Okay, I do that all the time.
Right. Well, instead of raking your bank's website directly, an attacker has secretly positioned themselves between you and the bank's server.
So they're like the invisible person at the next table reading over my shoulder, except online.
Yeah. And because they're in the middle, they can see everything you send. Your username, password, even your account balance, like everything.
Okay, that's officially creepy. But how do they do it? I mean, what kind of magic is this?
Okay, so there are a few different ways. One common technique is called ARP spoofing. It exploits a really fundamental way that devices on a network talk to each other.
ARP spoofing. Sounds kind of technical.
It is a bit, but I think we can break it down. Imagine a delivery driver bringing a package to your house. They need your street address, right?
Right.
But their delivery network might use a GPS coordinate to find you, behind the scenes.
Okay, so two different ways to represent the same location.
Exactly. ARP, or Address Resolution Protocol, is like this system that translates between those two addresses. So each device has a unique physical address. It's called a MA address.
Okay.
And a logical address, the IP address.
Right.
ARP is like the translator, helping devices find each other based on their IP addresses.
So where does the spoofing come in?
Right. So in ARP spoofing, the attacker pretends to be the router on the network.
Like my home Wi-Fi router.
Yeah, exactly. They send out fake ARP messages, tricking your computer into thinking their MAC address is the router's address.
Oh, so my computer's like, oh, you're the router. Here's all my data.
Yeah, basically. And now the attacker is sitting in the middle, able to intercept all your data, potentially change it even, before sending it on to the actual destination.
Okay, this is starting to feel like a spy movie or something.
A little bit, yeah.
But can they actually read the data? What if I'm using a secure website, with HTTPS and a little padlock icon?
Ah, that's the question, isn't it? Ideally, HTTPS makes it much harder.
Because it's all encrypted, right?
Right. But there's another technique, it's called SSL stripping, that can sometimes bypass that encryption.
Wait, hold on. So even the websites with the padlock and HTTPS can be compromised?
It's not as common as it used to be, but it's still something to watch out for. So imagine trying to enter a really secure building, with a complex lock on the door.
Okay.
The attacker creates a fake entrance that looks almost the same, but it just has a simple doorknob. And they subtly redirect you to that fake entrance.
Oh, so I think I'm using the secure connection, but I'm actually being tricked into using an insecure one.
Yeah, exactly. It's all about deception. That's the whole idea behind SSL stripping. They downgrade your connection from secure HTTPS to regular HTTP without you realizing it.
This is getting kind of scary.
Yeah.
How do they do this SSL stripping thing?
They use a bunch of tools, but one common one is called SSL strip. So let's say they're targeting a website like vulweb.com. It's a website made for security testing, First, they'd need to set up a MITM attack, like we discussed, with the ARP spoofing to get between you and vulweb.com.
Okay, so they're already intercepting the traffic. What next?
Next, they use SSL strip to intercept any requests from your browser to that website.
Okay.
SSL strip kind of acts as a man in the middle for the TLS handshake.
Like what handshake?
The TLS handshake. It's the process that establishes a secure HTTPS connection.
Okay.
So SSL strip It tricks your browser into thinking it's talking directly to the website over HTTPS,
Mhm.
but it's actually talking to the attacker's machine over plain old HTTP.
Sneaky.
Meanwhile, SSL Strip sets up its own secure HTTPS connection to the real website, so they're kind of playing both sides.
Oh, so they're like a double agent. Maintaining a secure connection to the real site but giving me an insecure one?
Yeah, precisely. And now, because your browser's connected insecurely, the attacker can see everything. Usernames, passwords, credit card info, everything.
I don't like where this is going.
Right. Don't worry, though. There are ways to protect yourself from this. We'll get into that later.
Okay, good. But you mentioned SSL stripping isn't as effective as it used to be. Why is that?
Well, browsers and websites have gotten a lot smarter about security. Like, there's this thing called HSTS. It stands for HTTP Strict Transport Security.
HSTS, okay.
Yeah, a mouthful. But it basically forces your browser to only use HTTPS for a certain website, even if you try to access it over regular HTTP. Lots of big websites have it, so SSL stripping is less effective now.
So it's like a safety net preventing the connection from being downgraded.
Yeah, exactly. And modern browsers have built-in security features that warn you about possible SSL stripping attacks. So it's still out there, but less common.
That's good to hear. But I have a feeling there's more to this whole MITM thing.
There is. We've done ARP spoofing, SSL stripping. Now we need to talk about DNS spoofing. It's like someone messing with the internet's address book, sending you to the wrong place.
Okay, I'm listening. DNS spoofing. Tell me more.
Imagine you want to visit google.com. Your computer needs to find the actual IP address, right? Because computers speak in numbers.
Right.
And that's where DNS comes in. The domain name system. It's like the internet's phone book, translating those domain names into IP addresses.
So DNS is the bridge between what I type in and where my computer actually goes.
Yeah, exactly. So in DNS spoofing, the attacker messes with this process. They intercept your DNS request and respond with a fake IP address, redirecting you to a website they control.
So I could end up on a fake Google page? One that looks real but is actually a trap?
Exactly. They could steal your login info, infect your computer, all sorts of nasty stuff.
This is starting to feel like a minefield. Everywhere I go online, there's another potential trap.
It can feel that way, yeah. But don't panic. There are ways to protect yourself, and we're going to get to that.
Phew, good. Because I'm definitely ready to learn how to navigate this minefield safely.
Yeah.
We'll be back in just a bit to talk about how to protect yourself from these MITM attacks. Stay with us. All right, so we've been talking about all these sneaky MITM attacks, ARP spoofing,
Yeah.
SSL stripping, even DNS spoofing.
Right.
It's enough to make you want to, throw your computer out the window and, never go online again.
Yeah, I know what you mean.
But before we all, run off and live in the woods somewhere, let's talk about how to actually protect ourselves from all this.
Right.
Because there's got to be a way.
Absolutely, yeah. And the good news is a lot of it comes down to, basic awareness and good habits. Locking your doors and windows
Yeah.
makes you a harder target.
Okay, so what's the first line of defense? Where do we start?
Using HTTPS whenever you can. We talked about it a bit earlier. But it's, seriously important. HTTPS encrypts the communication between your browser and the website, so attackers can't, just eavesdrop easily.
So that little padlock icon we see up in the address bar,
Right.
that's our signal, right? We're good.
Yeah, exactly. Always look for that padlock, especially when you're entering, sensitive stuff like passwords or credit card numbers. And
Right.
If a website doesn't use HTTPS, especially for logging in or shopping, it's a huge red flag.
Okay, good to know. HTTPS, check. What else can I do?
Another big one is using a VPN.
Ah, yes, the VPN. I feel like I hear those all the time, but I'm still not quite sure what they do.
Okay, so imagine a VPN, like a tunnel, right? It protects your data as it's traveling across the internet.
Okay, I like that. A tunnel.
Public Wi-Fi hotspots, that coffee shops, imports, those are often unsecured, making them easy targets for MITM attacks.
So using public Wi-Fi is kind of like sending a postcard. Anyone could read it along the way.
Yeah, that's a great analogy. But a VPN's like putting that postcard in a sealed envelope. It creates this encrypted connection between your device and a remote server, masking your IP address and encrypting all your traffic.
So even if someone's snooping, they can't see what I'm doing
Right.
or where I'm going online.
Exactly.
Yeah.
It adds this extra layer of privacy and security that's super important, especially on those public networks where you don't really know who's running things.
Okay, makes sense. So we've got HTTPS, we've got our VPN. What else?
Another thing, and people don't always think about this one, is keeping your software up to date.
Oh, right, all those update notifications?
Yeah, your operating system, web browser, security software, everything. Updates often include security patches. They fix those vulnerabilities that attackers could, try to exploit.
So when I hit that Remind Me Later button, basically making myself an easier target.
Think of it this way. Attackers are always finding new ways to break into systems, right?
Right.
So updates are like patching those holes in your defenses. Ignoring updates is like leaving your front door unlocked.
Got it. Update, update, update. Now, what about passwords?
Right, passwords are huge.
Are they, though? I mean, with all this talk about MITM attacks, I'm starting to wonder if passwords even matter anymore. Like, is it even possible to have a secure password these days?
They're more important than ever, actually. Strong, unique passwords, those are your first line of defense. If an attacker does manage to grab your login info, it's like, having multiple locks on your door
Yeah.
makes it way harder to break in.
Okay, so no more using the same password for everything. Guilty as charged.
Yeah, no, that's a big no-no. If someone gets that one password, they've got the keys to the kingdom, right? It's like using the same key for your house, your car, and your office. Not a good idea.
Yeah, that's a good point. Guess I need to up my password game. Any tips?
I highly recommend using a password manager. It can generate super strong, unique passwords for all your accounts and store them securely. You only have to remember one master password.
Okay, password manager. Got it. Anything else?
Let's talk about DNS SEC and encrypted DNS. Remember DNS spoofing?
Yeah, where they mess with the internet's address book.
Right. So DNS SEC, it stands for Domain Name System Security Extensions. It's designed to prevent that kind of attack.
So it's like a security upgrade for that address book.
Exactly. DNS SEC adds digital signatures to DNS records so your computer can verify the information is legitimate. Think of it like a tamper-proof seal.
Oh, so my computer can tell if someone's messed with the directions, so to speak?
That's it. And then there's encrypted DNS. It adds another layer of protection by encrypting the DNS queries themselves.
So even if someone's watching my traffic, they can't see what websites I'm trying to go to.
Right, like sending those address book requests in a secret code.
I like it.
Protocols like DNS over HTTPS or D of H and DNS over TLS or DOT, those encrypt your DNS queries, making them much harder to intercept.
So DNS-SEC makes sure the info is legit.
Right.
And encrypted DNS keeps the queries themselves hidden.
Exactly. It's like double the protection. And a lot of modern browsers and operating systems support them now.
Okay, that's good to know. Enabling all those extra security settings. So we've covered a lot here, but I'm feeling a little overwhelmed. What are the main takeaways?
The main thing is, MITM attacks are a real threat. But knowing how they work helps you protect yourself. You don't have to be a, tech genius or anything.
So it's all about being aware and building good habits.
Exactly. HTTPS, caution on public Wi-Fi, keep your software updated, use strong passwords, consider a VPN. Simple stuff, really.
So not paranoia, just being informed and proactive.
Exactly. And remember, cybersecurity is always changing, right? New threats and vulnerabilities are constantly popping up. So staying informed, staying curious, that's how you stay ahead of the game.
Great point.
And it's not just about individuals. Network administrators, they have a whole other set of tools to, protect entire networks. Intrusion detection systems, firewalls, specialized software, that kind of thing. Like building a digital fortress.
Right, so it's like a multi-layered approach. Individuals taking steps to protect themselves, but also networks being secured.
Exactly. The more layers of protection you have, the better. It's all about making it as tough as possible for those attackers.
Okay, so we've talked about what these attacks are, how they work, and some ways to protect ourselves. But have these attacks actually happened in the real world? Has anyone really fallen victim to this stuff?
Oh, absolutely. There have been tons of cases, even some really high-profile ones. Like back in 2017, attackers went after this popular messaging app. They used ARP spoofing and DNS spoofing.
Really? Even messaging apps can be vulnerable. I thought those were supposed to be secure.
Yeah, well, even encrypted messaging apps can be targeted. In this case, they found weaknesses in the app's setup process, so they could get in before messages were encrypted.
So it's not just about the app itself, but also how it's configured and all that.
Exactly. Even the most secure system can have weaknesses in how it's set up.
So what happened with that messaging app attack? Did they actually get people's messages?
They think so, yeah. And other user data, too. It really showed how important end-to-end encryption is. That's where messages are, encrypted on your device and only decrypted on the recipient's device.
So even if someone intercepts it, they can't read it, like they don't have the key.
That's the idea. End-to-end encryption adds that extra layer of security, even if the communication channel itself is compromised.
Makes sense. So bottom line, choose messaging apps that use end-to-end encryption, right?
Definitely. It's crucial for privacy and security.
Okay, so that's a real-world example. Any others?
Oh, tons. Especially involving public Wi-Fi, attackers will set up these fake Wi-Fi hotspots with like really official sounding names, free airport Wi-Fi, that kind of thing.
And people just connect without thinking.
Yep. They get tricked by those familiar names, but then once they're connected, the attacker can see all their traffic, everything.
That's so scary. It's like such an easy trap to fall into, especially when you're just trying to get online quickly.
That's why it's so important to use a VPN on public Wi-Fi. Creates that secure tunnel, protecting your data.
So a VPN is like a must-have travel item.
Pretty much, yeah.
Wow.
Especially if you're using, public Wi-Fi a lot.
Okay, so we've learned about the attacks, how to protect ourselves, and we've even seen some real-world examples. It's kind of a lot to take in, but what can we do, I guess, to raise awareness about this stuff?
Honestly, education is the key. Just spreading the word about MITM attacks and, empowering people to protect themselves.
So it's like a neighborhood watch, but for the internet, like looking out for each other and sharing info.
Yeah, exactly. The more we talk about this stuff, the more we educate each other, the better off we'll all be. It's not about freaking people out. It's about giving them the knowledge to make smart choices.
This has been a super informative deep dive. I feel like we started off feeling kind of vulnerable, but now I'm actually feeling empowered to like take control of my online security.
That's awesome. And remember, cybersecurity is an ongoing thing, right? It's not about being perfectly secure. It's about being aware of the risks and taking steps to protect yourself.
Any last thoughts for our listeners?
I'd encourage everyone to keep learning about these topics, dig deeper into things like DNSSEC, encrypted DNS. And if you're really feeling adventurous, learn a bit about ethical hacking. It's really helpful to understand how the bad guys think.
That's a great point. Knowing how the other side operates gives you a real advantage.
Exactly. The more you know about cybersecurity, the safer you'll be online.
Well said. I think that's a great place to leave it for today. Okay, so we've covered how to protect ourselves from these MITM attacks. But what about, like, the bigger picture? Where do these attacks kind of fit into the whole landscape of cyber threats? Is this something that, like, regular people should be worried about, or is it more of a problem for, big companies and governments and stuff?
Honestly, it can be anyone. Individuals, businesses, governments, anyone can be a target.
So, like, anybody's fair game.
Pretty much, yeah. It really just depends on, the attacker's motivation and what resources they have.
Okay, that makes sense. So what are some of the motivations behind these attacks? Like, what are these attackers actually after?
Well, it can be anything from, just stealing login credentials for financial gain
Yeah.
to something way more complex, like espionage or even sabotage.
It sounds like there's like a whole spectrum of bad stuff going on out there.
There is, yeah. On the less sophisticated end, you've got opportunistic attackers. They're just looking for easy targets. People using unsecured Wi-Fi, that kind of thing. They might steal passwords, credit card info, whatever they can get their hands on.
So like digital pickpockets.
Exactly. And then you've got, more organized groups. They might target specific companies or people trying to steal intellectual property, financial data, that kind of thing.
So it's not always just about the money, right? It can be about stealing secrets too.
Absolutely. And then, on the more sophisticated end of the spectrum, you've got state-sponsored attackers. They might use MITM for espionage or sabotage, serious stuff.
So like spying on government officials, disrupting, critical infrastructure, that kind of thing.
Exactly. Those attacks can have really serious consequences, not just for the individual, but for, society as a whole.
Okay, that's pretty sobering. So given all that, what can be done to combat these attacks on a bigger scale? Is it even possible to stop them altogether?
I mean, it's unlikely we'll ever completely eliminate these attacks, but we can definitely make them much harder to pull off.
Okay, so how do we do that?
One important thing is to promote strong security practices, across the board, encouraging people to use good passwords, turn on two-factor authentication, be careful on public Wi-Fi, all that stuff.
So education and awareness are still key.
Yeah, Definitely. But we also need to fix those technical vulnerabilities that make these attacks possible in the first place. Like, for example, making sure that HTTPS is used by default on all websites.
So encryption should be the norm, not the exception.
Exactly. And then there are like more advanced technical solutions, things like DNS-SCC and encrypted DNS. We talked about those.
Right, right.
Implementing those more widely would help a lot.
It was kind of like a multi-pronged approach, right? Individual actions, technical solutions, and like industry-wide collaboration.
Exactly. It's a complex problem, so it needs a complex solution. We all need to be working together on this.
This has been a really eye-opening deep dive. I feel like we've learned a lot about the technical side of things, the impact these attacks can have, and most importantly, how to protect ourselves. But I think the biggest takeaway for me is, like you said earlier, knowledge is power. The more we understand about these threats, the better we can defend against them.
I totally agree. Cybersecurity is a shared responsibility. We all have to do our part to make the online world a safer place.
Well said. Thank you so much for joining us today and sharing your expertise with us. It's been a really fascinating conversation.
It was my pleasure. I always enjoy talking about cybersecurity and hopefully helping people stay safe online.
And to our listeners, we hope you found this deep dive into the world of MITM attacks informative and maybe even a little empowering. Remember, stay curious, stay vigilant, and stay safe out there in the digital world. We'll see you next time.